Welcome to the Old Pine Road Podcast.
And with that, welcome to this week's, month's, year's edition of the Old Pine Road Podcast.
Hey, folks.
We made it. This is Season 2, Episode 2. I think it's our 8th or 9th episode overall. We're coming on up on Episode 10. I did mention Episode 10, something big was going to happen.
Ooh. Is that the silver anniversary?
That is the silver anniversary.
Yeah.
What do you get somebody for their silver anniversary?
You get silver.
Oh.
Like, yeah.
Silverware.
How original.
Yeah, silverware. I'll bring some plastic spoons or some shit.
Yeah. So Episode 10's coming up. Something big and exciting is coming up, and I'm not just making that up for content or something to do to build excitement that I have absolutely no plan whatsoever on.
He's not. We have a plan.
We have a plan.
A very solid one.
But yeah, we're gonna keep trucking along. We have Paul
Hello,
along
Paul.
with us today. So we have our three-legged dog. Let's give it for Paul Maxey. Ooh, something about clapping just fires me right up. There's something about it.
Oh yeah, we had the
So primal.
golf clap and the slow clap. Like,
You have
You
to
get
have
the best of both worlds.
You have to have contrast. If you have
Yeah.
too much of the same clap, it gets all muddied together. If
Yeah.
everyone's synced up, then it gets weird and kind of cult-like.
right.
So
You don't
gotta
call
have
clap.
that
You don't want
contrast.
that.
So we got some variety in how we clap there.
Yeah.
But welcome, Paul. Thank you for rolling in. He just rolled in off the road literally a minute ago and hopped in the chair, and we're like, let's go. Let's fire off.
Hopped in the hot
How are
seat.
you?
He's in the hot seat.
And that's where we're at. It is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving again to everybody.
Happy
and
Thanksgiving.
Hope everyone
Friends.
had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Paul, how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was great. So Emily and I didn't feel like cooking, and we went to Suffolk Street, which is the place that also catered our wedding, which was pretty awesome. And
Dang, that place is good.
yeah,
Wonderful
we
food.
were real pleased about that. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
like everything on the menu was perfect. Just
Like what,
perfection.
Thanksgiving stuff?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, it's just standard steak Thanksgiving stuff. But it was
Nice.
like,
Nice.
you know, your sweet potatoes, your mashed potatoes,
Turkey
cranberry,
taters.
turkey, ham, dressing. Oh, the dressing was fantastic. The dressing, the gravy.
We call it stuffing up here in the Northwest.
Huh? No, wait, dressing? Is that what you called it?
Yeah,
No, stuffing.
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 But
I thought he was
some
talking-
people call it dressing. Some people call it
I
stuffing.
let it slide because I thought maybe
It's-
they put some kind of
it's an
drizzle or
age-old-
dressing on the turkey. It didn't even. Maybe a little bit of a splash of balsamic. A drizzle.
Are we getting into balsamic dogs?
A drizzle
again?
of Italian, perhaps?
I can't talk about that again. Have I talked about that on the?
No,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
dressing, some people call stuffing dressing.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So that's actually a thing. So that's from down south.
I guess I don't know.
Perhaps.
I feel like growing up in Indiana, we're like Indianapolis.
Home of the pork sandwich.
You go north in North Indianapolis, you're in Chicago, and in southern Indianapolis, you're in Memphis. It's like
Okay.
the line is right through the city. So I've heard stuffing and dressing, and who knows?
The jury's still out.
Yeah.
The jury's still out on what's right. But up here,
Folks, you can let us know
But
your
stuffing
opinion.
here.
Drop a comment.
Yeah.
stuffing, dressing. Wonderful. Max, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Went to Madison, visited my brother. He smoked a turkey.
Ooh,
Yeah.
awesome. Have any hard time like rolling it up?
No, it rolled up real nice, baby. Lit that beast off. Oof. Into the heavens.
Never smoked a turkey myself.
No?
No, just
It takes
I
a
feel
long
like you'd have to
couldn't get it
dry
to light.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
dedication is what it takes. But it was great, man. Yeah.
Awesome. So went down to your brother's, you said, down
Yeah,
in Madison.
Wisconsin.
Had a
Yeah,
smoked turkey. Yum. That's
That's awesome.
I don't think I've ever had smoked turkey. I was harping up deep
Well,
fried
if
turkey.
you've had a turkey sandwich, you've had smoked turkey, because that's all smoked.
Sure. Okay. I'm not much of a sandwich guy myself. I've never.
You've had like sliced turkey.
I really
though.
haven't dallied in the deli meats.
That's a take.
You keep telling me you never had sliced turkey?
I haven't dabbled or dallied in the deli meats myself.
Okay, David's never had sliced turkey.
I've dipped my toes. I'm just saying I've never dabbled or delied in the deli meats. I'm just not a deli dabbler myself.
Deli dabblers.
I'd starve if I wasn't dabbling delis.
Code word of the day, deli dabbler. Enter Deli Dabbler at the oldpineroadband.com website and see what happens.
Hashtag big meats.
Yeah.
Not the Old Pine Road Boys, nope. Awesome. That sounds like a great Thanksgiving.
What about you?
Yeah.
I stuck close to home. We went to my sister's.
Okay.
And she made kind of a Thanksgiving luncheon.
All right.
And all the fixins.
Yeah.
And the fixins on the fixins. And I'm still feeling a little bit lethargic trying to process.
In that turkey.
Whew, is it? I took a trip to bed after that turkey, that's for sure.
Yeah. Out of the pan into the bed.
That's
what they say.
It was delicious, though. She made a homemade, pecan pie.
Oh, I love a good pecan.
I don't know if anybody knows me. I'm going to tell you right now.
I love a good pecan.
I'm a pie guy. I'm a sweets guy. Snowshoe Baseball in Lake Tomahawk, they do pie every week. And I'll go up there to, if they're not, I don't even care if they're playing baseball. I'll go up there to snag some pie.
Who wants the pie?
And I get a little bit of a kick in my step when I get I get a proper pecan pie.
A little glad in the stride. Ooh. I love a good pecan too.
My sister's pecan pie was the best pie I have ever had. I'm getting a little fired up right now thinking about it. It's the best pie I've ever had in my life. The caramelization of the pecans.
She just make one?
She made it. It was a sourdough pie crust. She made 2 of them. Yeah, homemade sourdough. My heart's racing right now thinking about it. I genuinely.
That sounds good. Pecan's my favorite kind of pie. Water.
Yeah, it was, and it was the best pecan pie I've ever had. Kudos to her; good. It was wonderful. We were supposed to go to Emily's parents. We were supposed to go to Emily's parents after, and the snowpocalypse kind of rolled in and kept us out of there. So we ended up.
Was it snowing pretty good up here?
Not here necessarily, but in Vilas, northern Vilas, they got lake effect. They got hit with some lake effect.
Yeah, I heard up north they got a bad. Down by me, nothing hardly.
That's it. And Rhinelander too, we got snow.
We got at least a little something on the ground. We don't have anything.
Up there, apparently, they got a good dumping, and that's where her parents live. So
a good dollop of that snow.
Yeah, yeah. So we ended up staying home and watching the Packers.
Yeah.
Keep the win streak going.
Nice.
It's a good year to be a Packers fan. It's a great year. So it's gonna be fun to watch playoffs. I'm going to try to not turn this into a football podcast because these guys don't really do football like I do, but it's going to be hard not to talk about the Packers during playoffs.
So are they in the playoffs?
I don't think we've clinched. No, we haven't clinched.
So you're...
Last I saw, we were on the 6 or 7 seed, and we're in the hunt. So the NFC North, which we're in, the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings.
Oh my.
Yeah, the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers right now are almost all shoo-ins now by the looks of it for playoffs, which is huge. So really good, playing really good football up here in the North. And, I think even the Bears with the season they're having and all the drama, I think they're even technically still on the hunt if they could go. So good football, good stuff going on, and it's been a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun to watch.
Amen.
Go Pack, go. Yeah. So we talked about Thanksgiving. We caught up a little bit, I think, on everything that's been going on here and all the gorging we did. Thanks, gorging.
It was gorgeous.
It was gorgeous. We have a show today in Rhinelander at the bar. That's a fun spot. I think I'm gonna bring the old smoke machine out tonight and give them the old smoking lasers. Should be a really good time.
Turkey now.
Oh, dry, just like most turkeys. Yeah. We got. It's gonna be a fun weekend. Yeah. We wanted to talk about, in the last episode, we talked about laying roots. We went song for song and dove into laying roots. We started this podcast during the process of recording Branching Out. So throughout season 1, you can kind of go back and you're going to hear some of the different updates, a little bit of this and that about the album. This time we wanted to go song for song and give you a little bit of a deep dive. If you like the album, like our music, it's gives you a little bit of a behind the curtain.
Little insight on
Little behind the curtain, a little bit of
what's going
insight into this process, and yeah, we just document it for posterity.
Yeah.
Yeah, just document it. This is the album we're talking about here. It's called Branching Out. This album, when I first started doing the recording, I had an idea for having like kind of a trilogy of albums. 3 albums that kind of had the same influence, evolution, development, and the names of the albums would be indicative of that growth in the process. So the first album was called Laying Roots because that's literally what it was. It was just trying to figure out how things worked out. Very much my freshman entry effort, our freshman effort, and it was, full of the freshman experience. This is our sophomore album, and so we named it Branching Out. And the third album is yet unnamed, but you can imagine it's probably going to follow that direction. Or maybe we'll just go off the rails entirely and just throw away the mix. Who knows? Who knows? You decide, audience. Let us know in the comments. But that's where the name came from, Branching Out. And that's what I thought, in my mind, if I had to summarize the process, what it was. We met Paul not too long before we started, and Paul has recording a degree, an experience, so he's got some education and knowledge about the process. We put that to work. We put the harmonizing and the more vocal work into this album. There was no harmonizing or anything on the first album. Just totally kind of relearning the process in a way, taking what we learned from Laying Roots, but starting fresh with a fresh mind and perspective. And that's where we started. The first song that we started to record was actually Higher Than a Kite. But the first song on the album is Shades, and we're gonna go in order with the album, just because that's the order on it, and why not?
Makes sense.
So let's dive in and talk about track 1. Did I put it the right way? Sure did.
Beautiful. You
Track
got this.
1, Shades.
Got Shades.
I should mention that track 1 and the track order itself changed like 100 times throughout the process. There's actually a whiteboard in the other room that still has some of the old working titles and kind of just a list that we had, a little checklist to keep track where we were at. It's still up there. And I can't even remember what I was just saying. I just went totally off the rails because I heard a little clicking.
Shades,
We're talking about
whiteboard.
Shades now. Like it was going to be track 3.
Yes.
Then it was going to be track 1. Like, and we'd always said like, oh, track 3 is usually the one that gets them, but not anymore. Like because attention spans are just
our entire
they're
approach
dying
changed. That's one thing I noticed is that somebody will like click on the album, they'll listen to that first track, first song or two, but people's attention spans nowadays is very, very narrow. So, yeah, we kind of figured that if we've only got them for one song, this would be the song that we'd really like people to listen to.
Yep.
I wrote Shades December 2 or 3 years ago, I want to say. Excuse me. And it was about like an experience that I'd had, and I had put a lot of like thought and excitement into this experience and what it was going to be and hope. And when it happened and came through, like it didn't feel or come out the way that I had hoped it would, and it didn't have the effect that I hoped it would. But there was all this powerful emotion and feeling behind it, and so it was like just like a really confusing time, and that was like. That's Shades. Like it's like the day is coming, the morning's coming, the world's turning, and it's gonna pull me away from here in this moment. But for as much as I can, like I want to be present in this, So hold me close one more time. We repeat that quite a few times throughout the song, and I think it kind of encapsulates what the song is about. That holding on to that experience for what it is and being grateful, because I think we all get to have these really wonderful, powerful, cathartic experiences, but just the way that the world and life is, like sometimes those moments and people that we shared those moments with, like they just, they go other directions and other places, and all we have are those memories. So it's about being present in that, holding on to it, because even though the experience might not be a permanent thing, the memory of it will be. So that's where lyrically it comes from. When we start recording most songs, we kind of go through and track out, measure out basically where things are going to be. One nice thing is, like, with us playing live as much as we do, is we do a lot of that process live. Yeah. And Shades was one of those songs that I think when we started writing it and kind of playing it, ended up being very different from what we ended up recording. And even now, when you come listen to it, it's been, a full year since the album came out. Yeah. We had been playing it already up to that point. Oh, you know what? Can we turn off that heater behind you? I didn't even realize it was still on. That one, just turn it all the way to the left. Whoops. To our listeners that had a steady buzz there, apologies. It is what it is.
It's that time of year. We got to have the heater on.
Yeah. It's a little chilly up in the studio, so we had the space heater on. Yeah. It's a lot quieter in here now, though. Wow. Holy cow.
It is. The silence is deafening.
Wow. I hope the first half of this wasn't unlistenable for everybody.
I bet we could toss a gate on that.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about anything. People's expectations of us are, I think, relatively low, so we...
Rapidly dipping.
That's kind of like the sweet spot, though. If the expectations are low,
you only up from here.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm either going to be what you expect me to be, or probably worse. Anyways, so we were talking about how during playing songs, Shades now when we played is very different from the album even.
I think us recording it changed it from how we were playing it before, and now it's still evolving.
Sure. It's a mix. Mix, and that's one nice thing about taking your time to record. Rather, if you write something and you try to write it in that moment, play it, put it down, that's kind of a rushed process. Where that first album, having kind of 5 years of doing it, some of those songs you get a little more time to figure out and iron out. And so Shades has changed. Shades did benefit from us playing it live quite a few times, and it still changes. We recorded the guitar on that first, and then we did all of our other tracks. Paul did some wonderful bowing in there, and that's kind of a fresh experience for you. What was that like, Paul?
Yeah, I still don't know how to bow, really. I pretend I do real good, but
it's pretty pretending. Yeah. I mean, it's all we all do.
It's funny. A friend of a friend came to a show and played cello, and I learned through that mutual friend that he definitely had some notes for me and how terrible I am at bowing.
Sure.
But that's one of the things I kind of fell into it, and I was like, well, if it sounds good, okay, great. And I know I've got a lot of room to grow there, and as you would expect, there's not a lot of stringed instrument teachers in Mercer, Wisconsin.
Sure.
So I haven't. I need to go hunt somebody down and just get my bowing technique down and really hone that in. But there's a lot you can do with editing, and then there's also a lot that just playing out. I learn how to sound better at it anyway.
Sure.
So
I think it sounded great on the album. I think all your work on the album sounded awesome.
Thanks.
And, Paul, again, for listeners, the upright bass, the double bass, is a pretty new instrument for him still. He played bass before, but it having no frets, having flat wound strings instead of your round wound strings, it's a totally different feel. The sliding, it's a very different feeling and skill set. So I think Paul having the amount of experience he has does a very wonderful
perfectly.
job.
Yeah.
I think Shades is a great example of that.
It's my favorite instrument that I've ever played, and I played a lot of instruments.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, so the first one that you actually played was the one that I had bought. When did I buy that? A couple years ago. And the whole reason I bought it in the first place was I had been looping, and I would bring that jazz bass with me, and I would literally put down my guitar, pick up the jazz bass, put it back down, and it was a very cumbersome process. So I looked online and found that these were the thing that they made, and that it could just stand there.
The old twisted strap days.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So when you see Max and I play a duo set, which we do quite a bit during the winter, more so definitely during the winter than the summer, but when you see that, I still play the upright bass. I'll reach over and pluck away on it. Paul saw me doing that and was like, "Hey, if you had one less thing to do, you could focus on some other stuff." And it's a wonderful addition. But you'll still see both. And again, I think your work on the album is just awesome. The sound work,
Thanks,
and just recording in general. Like Paul's, knowledge of gain staging, the mixing process, EQ, everything. Like it shows. You can definitely hear a step up, I think, in the production quality, and that is all Mr. Paul over here. You went hard in the paint. I don't
want to take all the credit, and are we, if we can segue to Vindication now.
Well, the mandolin real quick before we segue.
Yes,
but I did want to ask, like, were there any parts of Shades that you particularly enjoyed? I really enjoyed your soloing on it.
Yeah, it's a good solo. Oh yeah.
Max has like a playing style that all mandolin players, I'm sure, incorporated at some point. But the only way I can describe it is like, that Godfather. What would you call that? Not
vibrato.
Yeah, it's like vibrato, but I'm sure it's a technique. It's a very pretty quality, and you do a couple of those in the solo that came through really cool.
Those are always nice. Always add a nice flair.
Yeah, and then we played. There's 3 solos, or no?
Got some banjo in there, right?
Yeah, I did. I went through and picked through some layer of banjo. I should mention that like all of our work and album work has some layer of banjo on it, and I personally feel it's a big part like of our sound that I like to incorporate when I can. When places book us and we start to get into that next tier of booking and whatnot, our hope is to maybe eventually, knock on wood, either add a percussionist full-time or banjo
It'd be nice.
full-time.
Yeah.
Because in our recording we use both, and it's fun in the writing process. Again, when you see a live show, we use a lot of looping, and the looping is great and wonderful for what we do in the space we do and the price point and everything we do everything at. But personally, I feel, as we start to expand on that and whatnot, there's a good chance you're going to see more of the percussion with us. You're going to see more of banjo, harmonica, those guys, because when I can afford them, I'm going to grab them up whenever I can. But yeah, so on the albums themselves, I plickety pluck on the banjo, and that's a fun. That's probably one of my favorite instruments to play, honestly. Like doing some of the rolling and things on the banjo, skill-wise, it's very, very stimulating.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a very lively instrument.
Yeah, it sure cuts through a room.
Do you use finger picks, or do you go?
I pick with my fingertips, but I've actually been having a little bit of a moral quandary, I guess. I don't even know if that's the word, but so I finger pick. I use my fingertips. And what's happened is like my fingertip or my fingernail on my pointer finger here, it gets worn down just by plucking the string so much that it's worn to like a very flimsy, like the fingernail itself is very
worn to a fray.
Yeah, it gets, and I like during the summer when I'll literally peel that thing back to the nail bed, which can't be good for the fingertips. So I don't use any fingertips or anything like that, but I have been considering some plucking around with them, especially on the banjo. I've also been playing like the lap steel and some stuff like that, and so I want to be able to get those. So that's kind of next on my skill of things, to my list of skills to dink around with.
One of my buddies from college used to get the acrylics just on his right hand.
Oh, the nails themselves. Yeah, a lot of guitar players will do that. They'll get a fake nail. They'll put on like nail polish to strengthen it and stuff. And I've tried stuff like that. It's weird, I like to have the nail down to almost right by the bed. It needs to be like right there. So the acrylic would probably be, I don't know, anything that you're gonna do is gonna be adapting to it, figuring out. I ain't complaining. I'm grateful for the opportunity to mess with any of them. But yeah, I use my fingertips on everything, and I also like it because it does give you a little bit more of a muted tone, especially on like the banjo. It rings so much that when you use picks, like kind of like the more muted
subdued
tone of like a
tone,
finger pick, sure,
if you will.
And that's what you hear too on Den of Heathens as well as that finger pick tone. But we'll get to that. Any more chat about shades? Any more questions from the audience? Is the camera rolling? Would you mind double checking that?
Not at all.
Let's all give it up for Max. Thank you for checking the camera for us, Max.
Good to go. Woo. Thanks, Max.
We all have a different sparkling water today.
I noticed that.
Wow.
I thought so.
Bottoms up.
We're back to corporate shilling for LaCroix. I'm trying this Better Goods, which is a strawberry. Yeah, this is great.
Is it?
Did you try these yet?
I haven't.
Yeah, they're great.
Awesome. I'm drinking a Polar Orange Vanilla.
And the orange vanilla
Ooh, the
is
creamsicle of.
Well, I'm a little
the
fired
creamsicle
up.
of
I get
sparkling.
these. They are you get the most bubbles per buck. Okay, honestly, as a brand, it's one of the most bubbles per buck. Better Good, pretty good. But I was getting these $3.28 a case. Sweet, awesome, what a deal.
Yeah.
There's only 8 of them in a case,
Yeah, but still.
Anyways, this flavor is like the only one I really, really like of that friggin' brand. And what do? They've raised this flavor up to $3.68. All the other ones stay down. 40 cents. That's
Forget about it.
I've been sweat every time I got to pull out my wallet and pay. I start shaking a little bit.
Yeah.
Like what the shakedown? But
I'll tell
so
you.
I feel targeted.
But it's good because you're just paying a machine anyways.
I complain to them all the time.
The machines.
Bring me your manager. Yeah, that's,
He's that guy in the store kicking it.
who do you think you are?
I'll tell you.
I want an employee discount, damn it.
Getting the Soda Streams. They make little packs now that are like for, what did you call it? Like
What do you think?
Ghost soda? For making ghost soda
For making ghost
or
soda.
Oh.
static soda?
Yeah, for making ghost soda.
TV static.
It's
Yeah.
a thing. And
It's like when you color with chalk, on a sidewalk, and you just you kind of see the image there, but
Translucent.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right? Bioluminescent.
Totally.
Yeah, that.
Awesome. So let's just move on because we're getting
Yeah.
off the rails.
Yes, come on.
It's a good way to describe us, off the rails.
So
you wanted to segue to Vindication.
The segue. You were saying, I made the difference in this album. No, I don't necessarily think so because I remember early in my band days.
Band-Aids?
Band-Aids.
Band-Aids.
Band days.
Band days.
Come on, enunciate, dude.
This is a whirlwind of emotions.
I'm blushing.
So, anyway, I walk in and David. I think it was maybe one of the first times I was ever up in the studio, and you're like, "Hey, I've got this track," and you had recorded what I think was probably the backbone for Vindication early on, and I listened to it. I was like, "This is awesome! Like this is." I heard that and I was like, "This is already head and shoulders above Laying Roots, in my opinion."
Sure.
I remember hearing it, and it was so much crisper and cleaner, and a lot of that sure has to do with the fact that, this studio right away you've got all the actual soundproofing going on, but it sounded great. It sounded already great, and I just want to say that when I came in, you were already killing it as far as.
I was starting to cook, and they're definitely again, for a refresher, Laying Roots was recorded in a 1-bedroom apartment, and that entire apartment with my living quarters, cooking and everything was probably the size of what now our studio is. So we, quadrupled in size in a sense for what we had for recording space, and then we went through and did some soundproofing. All still a work in progress, but yeah, that's there was definitely a difference, and just learning on Laying Roots. Laying Roots came out and listening to it and being like, oh, what the heck, I can't hear this, So the next time around is a lot more cautious. Still very much a learning experience, everything on it. One thing I remember about our very first time recording we should talk about it because Higher Roots was the first, or Higher Than a Kite was the first song, that we started recording, and there's a funny story about that process. But anyways, Vindication, I wrote that song, and I kind of went a different direction, like that intro to it. I kind of had that like little part picked out and thought it was really cool and pretty.
Very cool intro. Where did you record that?
I recorded that here.
The sound.
The background sounds and stuff like that. Yes. So I pieced together most of the sounds from different like video clips and stuff that I have.
That's what
different places. So. Like I take I'll go to Ontonagon or Okundakan Falls or these pretty places, and I have just a ton of all the waterfalls that we go and visit and stuff, and we've probably got to visit like 30 this last year. I'll take like 30 seconds to a minute long videos of just that shot. Mm-hmm. And then when we get really deep winter and it starts to suck, I'll put those up on the TV and just like kind of have a little, This
is a thing too.
Yeah. That's a reminder that like, even though it looks like that outside, it looks like this, and gets me excited about summer and looking forward to seeing those places and getting out there. So I have all kinds of different audio clips, or not audio, but video clips. And I literally just took the audio from it. One thing that I did that I think is kind of very hokey was like I had like the audio on my phone, and when I first started, I didn't know how to get it from my phone to my computer. Mm-hmm. So honestly, some of those tracks on there were me taking my phone, holding it up to a microphone in the studio and like getting the sound that way, and then trying to use EQ to play it.
But they sound cool. They sound far away and
that
distant.
Probably added a little something.
Well, there's plenty of recordings that they'll go through old equipment and stuff. I use what I've got there, and if it doesn't sound right, try again. If it sounds okay, keep trucking while you can, and don't get too hung up on the details.
Yeah.
But I made that intro with the harmonics and everything, and and then the shift into like more of like a bluesy kind of funky tone. Lyrically, it's got a lot of religious themes in it. The whole song does. Every line. It's kind of when I wrote it, kind of me coming to terms with. I think I grew up in a really religious household, really religious upbringing, and then I kind of had a break with that. When I got out of high school, and up to that point, church had been like my entire social life. I lived like 20 minutes away from school out in the middle of nowhere, so there wasn't kids in our area, there wasn't anything, but we went to church on Wednesdays and Sundays. So twice a week I got to see my friends and have some social time. So it was like my life, it was my identity, it was,
your whole family's identity.
Yeah, it had been like, everything. And then so when I stepped outside of that, totally black sheeped it, and, everything changed. And then I talked some more about during that time, before our last podcast, I went into some of the things before Laying Roots and stuff, and the places that I, had been. So Vindication, anyways, lyrically was just about that process and where I ended up, and now I books you keep writing them. You don't put the until the very end, and I don't know.
Yep, we're still writing them.
Still writing these books. Nobody's reading them, but we're writing tons.
Couple brave souls.
Yeah, that's I think there's some harmonica on Vindication. Chris did all the harmonica on the album. Chris Skinner did all the harmonica on Laying Roots as well. He did a bunch of stuff.
Except on my song.
No, Max did the harmonica on Where'd Your Love Go? But yeah, Chris did all the rest of the harmonica, came in for an afternoon and just blew his lungs out and
ripped her.
Yeah, really grateful for everything he does. He's an
Thanks,
awesome
Chris.
musician. Another guy that, again, the more often you can see him with us, the more we can, the more we will. Yeah, what else did we have instrumentally on there? Just some basic bass and clucking around. It's a fun song.
Some nice solos on that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I did pretty much all the solos on that, and used some fun effects. Yeah, I got a Keeley Dark Side pedal like a year or two ago, and that's got some really cool, like almost like some old Leslie speaker tone to it. Yeah, that vibrato effector tone, and I use that in there, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun to play with the song.
Some
you know,
cool
you
tones.
like an acoustic guitar. You know, it's wonderful, but you sit and listen to the thing for 3 hours. And for me, I like it when it can kind of expand outside that box that maybe it can be sometimes. And that's where Vindication was. It was a very bluesy funk song, just having fun and blasting around. And then that goes into Higher Than a Kite, which is our third track. How are we doing on time here? I didn't even look.
It's 3:58.
Awesome. We did Higher Than a Kite. That was the third song and the first song, though, that we started recording. And I was going to say it was actually funny because we went and recorded the song, or I went and recorded, the guitar part. And I'm like, all right, let's do the next part. And Paul's like, no, that B string's off. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Paul? I play guitar for the B string's not off. And we got into an argument over it. And I remember eventually we were just like, whatever, it's not worth it. And this was like the first song, like the first thing we started working on. It was like right away we were like, well, what the hell? And then I went and listened to it without my ego and without my arrogance, and it was like, oh shit. So that was a fun little reality check. It's funny how that works. Like so much of what we do. When I talked about it a little bit last time, that when you start off with music, it's a very self-enclosed personal experience, and you develop all your tendencies. You develop you teach yourself to speak, or at least I taught myself. I think you were self-taught. I think for the most part. So for the most part, a lot of us are teaching ourselves to speak from videos online or from friends, little bits and pieces of what we can catch, and yeah, so much during that process. It can become almost too personal, and so when you do start to share a space or a stage or a common goal with someone else, every little criticism, every little critique, every little comment, is not just an attack on that thing, but about everything you've done up to that point to get there. Right, all the work and everything. There's so much intrinsically tied to what we do that, like, at the end of the day, we're just up there jangling. You're just vibrating things and having fun. But the amount of work and love, passion, sacrifice, dedication to make that a reality, it's a lot. And so every time something comes across a certain way, ego is such a it's a really big part of the music world, because you got to have some to be able to get into it, and then you got to learn how to work on it so that you can work with others, because it's so easy to soil or spoil relationships, and it's really hard to maintain and work and understand the oh boy, maybe I'm not so great, or maybe I did mess up. And in the case, maybe the B string was out of tune, and you were just trying to help.
It's valuable to be able to take criticism.
It's a valuable learning experience, and it ties into the Higher Than a Kite, because that is what Higher Than a Kite's about. Higher Than a Kite is about working on yourself and trying to grow, and that's where I feel like I've been trying to just like rectify that. Like, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I have many flaws. But it's not about where you are. It's where you're trying to go, and what your what you're hoping your end result is, and your commitment to that. And I think for the most part, like, found ways to like make livings with music and better the world around us and be good fathers to our kids, while also like contributing to our community, and hopefully the music contributes something, you know, to people that enjoy it or need it. Higher Than a Kite is just kind of about like when you're not in those great times and you're not feeling good about it, you know, relax. Keep working on yourself. There's no reason. There's going to be those terrible times, and it really, again, it comes back to the same theme that When All Is Said and Done has, and that's like focusing on that future.
Every new moment is a choice you get to make.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's what Higher Than a Kite was all about. The title for that song, I mean, it's the first line in the chorus. It's a pretty easy one, but we did a show in was it Hillsdale, over at the Enchanted Barn, and we asked what that song should be named, and they ended up that was the one that most of them mentioned. So they kind of solidified that was going to be the title. So thank you, Hillsdale and the Enchanted Barn, for
Thanks,
that.
Hillsdale.
It is much appreciated.
I want to say, you know, it's I think it's really cool that you have bared, I think, a tender part of yourself with that song specifically, and it's not hard to admit. Or it is hard to admit that, like, you have more growth to do, and to make that into a song that we can share with you, and like it means a lot to me too. And like hearing it, I'm just like, you know, it resonates with me, and I'm just like, yes, you know, like it's
awesome.
It's very positive, healthy masculinity is what it is, and it's really cool to hear it. It's taking ownership of the mistakes you've made and being a better person, and it's really cool that we get to sing that in front of people.
I'm going to ask you to stop now because my ego can't take anymore. I won't be able to get out the door. No, I appreciate it a lot.
Swollen up like a wood tick over there.
That's no, the message of the song is it's pretty indicative of where I try to be and where I think we all try to be, and that's one reason why even when we go through the storms and the not fun stuff, we can make it through because we all got that vision, you know.
Hopefully learn a little something along the way.
Hopefully we learn something along. Oh, this is getting cringy. All right, let's cut. Ew, gross.
Yeah.
For this next part of the podcast, we'll be talking about bald eagles.
Fuck yeah.
Who would win in a fight? Bald eagle versus the American turkey.
They already did that in a musical, man.
I watched a bald eagle kill a goose.
Really?
Watch a bald eagle. I watched a bald eagle.
A galled beagle.
I watched a bald beagle.
Kill a moose. Holy shit.
That just shows how stories can change over time. But I went to the park. I had got a new camera. And I was like, I'm going to go to Hodag Park, right in the middle of Rhinelander, and just go take some pictures of the sunset over the ice. And there's a flock of geese out on the ice. And as I'm taking this picture of the geese, they all take off. I'm like, oh, well, cool. I got some pictures of the geese with the sunset in the background. Very, very pretty. And I keep watching, and suddenly one of them's down on the ice. And I didn't see if it got struck or if it fell or what happened, but in a different section from where they took off on. So my assumption is it got struck down. But anyways, I sat there and watched in my camera. Oh God, it was such a great experience for me because I got to try the camera, and the worst experience you could ever imagine for any creature ever for that goose. And I did like, it was sombering, like, you know, my excitement or enthusiasm like did wear off in the fact that like I was watching something die and it was the most like the eagle like jumped on it, removed its feathers so it couldn't like get away. Like it just sat there ripping feathers out. Like I just watched it, just feathers flying. The goose is still very much calling and squawking.
Like, help me guys. Where you going?
It was wild. I mean, so the whole experience took like an hour and a half.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Hour and a half?
It took for. I mean, so it sat there, ripped the feathers out, and it just stood on top, wouldn't let the goose get up while it took the feathers off of it. Most of them, I'm assuming just so it couldn't fly. Then another eagle came in, kind of fought over it for a second, but the goose is still alive. Like I'm watching, like I have the whole process. I got photographed. You just went to the park in the middle of town on like a Tuesday night, and it was like the most planet Earth experience you could have. Everybody else just walking their dogs. Nobody like really realized what was going on.
You're never gonna see anything if you don't get out there.
It was wild. I mean, for a goose to prey on or an eagle to prey on a goose like that, it was crazy. So, I do have pictures of that on my Instagram. Cool. If anybody wants to see that, it was fascinating, that morbid, somber, and yeah, very good reminder that. We've got it pretty easy, and we should be grateful for. Yeah. I mean, some humans live in horror and terror still too, but
a lot of us don't.
But most of us don't have to live with like the natures of the realities of nature, and the realities of nature are brutal. Yeah. I don't even know where I started talking about the goose or the eagle or any of that.
We were talking about eagles fighting turkeys, and then it just kind of waltzed right into it.
Derailed, we did.
No, we waltzed.
We shot off. Offshoot. Good stuff. Higher Than a Kite, we also had some vocal harmonizing on. Yeah. That's really fun. That's something that Paul added, and Max adds as well. But I think with Paul, Paul's done a good job of directing where all the parts can go.
Harnessing, if you would.
Yeah. Well, and I think he was the one that really helped you, convince you to dive lower.
Which was
It's been a game changing, yes, because Paul's got the high, gives me kind of the middle, Max gets the lows. That was really due to Paul's, hey, let's figure out these harmonies. And Paul's always been a very natural harmonizer. So any of the harmonizing you hear on the album, I give a lot of credit to Paul for. Oh, I was going to mention that on Shades, that my friend Nick did some harmonizing on Shades as well. My friend Nick. I met Nick in a game of Rocket League, which is video. It's just a video game. You play soccer basically with a car.
It's great.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. A rocket car. It's very easy. Very fun game.
Rocket car?
I was playing in a random lobby with some guy, and we were both just kind of being obnoxious and toxic, and so he sent me a chat. He's like, join my party chat or whatever. And this is just a random chat online for anybody that doesn't game. The fact that this happened, but I joined his party chat, and we just started talking, and seemed to hit off. And where are you from? I'm from Wisconsin. Oh, I'm from Wisconsin. Where in Wisconsin? I'm from Wausau. I'm from Rhineland.
Couple of shit talkers from right down the road.
An hour apart. Lived an hour apart. So we played games for like a year together. We ended up meeting and hanging out. First time we met was down at the Eau Claire Dells.
Oh, okay.
My buddy was having a little bachelor party, and he came and hung out. But anyways, we've been friends now for years since that. Just a totally random meeting. In an online game lobby, just a total chance of occurrence, and now we've been friends for years. And he actually did the harmonizing on that. He grew up. Him and his family have like a family band, very very good, that played down in the Wausau area. So he's also a very gifted harmonizer in the really high, the falsetto highs that you hear on Shades. Nick DeYoung did that. So thank you, Nick. He works at O'Malley Cadillac down in Wausau. So if you guys are looking for a nice car, head on down to O'Malley Cadillac and ask for Nick, and you'll mention that you're a fan of the Old Pine Road Band in that song, and I bet you're gonna get a killer deal on a caddy. Anyways, if you guys are looking for a sponsorship. Anyways, harmonizing on Higher Love, harmonizing on that, yada yada yada. Plenty of harmonizing. Let's talk about the next song, which is the longest song by far on the album, and that is Muskie. And as you can guess, it's about a big fish. A really big fish. I had the idea for this song, I think years ago. I've always wanted to write kind of like a fish battle song. It was inspired by a story my dad told me growing up. My dad had told me when he was a kid on a lake just a quarter mile down the road from here. He was canoeing and fishing with his brother, and he looked over the side of the canoe, and next to the canoe was a fish, presumably a muskie. because sturgeon couldn't be in that area.
In a lake, right?
Yeah, in a lake. Yep. But he said in his mind as a kid, in his memory, it was the size of the canoe.
Uh-huh.
It was
What
a
lake?
massive fish. Hansen Lake.
Hansen, okay.
Yep.
Just for our listeners.
Yes, yep. Right around the corner. Anyways, it was, in his memory of fish, the size of the canoe. And then I just had that, I had snorkeled in Hansen 100 times.
Yeah.
And suddenly I had the idea of a
Fish as big
a
as...
muskie as big as a canoe or swimming around and what if there
Some
was a
big old
fish
guy.
like that? What if there was something, that, because these things are prehistoric and, so that's where muskie started, kind of like a Loch Ness Monster story, about a settler to the area. I'm a big history buff. People that know me, if you come walk around our studio, you're going to see a lot of historical stuff. I've always been really fascinated with the history of the area in the Northwoods, how it was settled, the industries that came out of it, the things they left behind. And so the story itself, I think, is very plausible and just kind of fits right into the Wisconsin, is it? Mythology?
Lore.
Mythology, is that the word?
Yeah.
That was kind of my attempt to just enter something into the Wisconsin mythology. But there are lots of hints of truth and stuff in it, and I did try to be really accurate. And I do think it's a plausible thing. I do think that there could be a big fish out there that's just evaded capture, and one of these days we might have a little bit of a Jaws scenario at one of these beaches. Big old muskie. That was the other part of the story that inspired it, actually, now that I mentioned it. So my dad had told me that story. Also, growing up, we had heard a story about a guy who had been fishing with a friend, and he had got pulled out of the boat or fell out of the boat or something, couldn't get back in and drowned. And at the time, whoever, again, I'm a kid, whoever relayed that story to me, that, maybe the fish got him or something like that. And, in my kid mind, this guy was pulled in by a fish. And, it's a fun premise for a story. And
I think big fish stories date back to the beginnings of time.
Cave drawings,
Yeah.
I'm sure you can find.
Yeah, that's prehistoric.
But
even before history. My
even
bad.
prehistory. Not bad. That's where muskie started. So I had that idea. I had the idea that I wanted to do a monster story about a settler. Had the whole kind of layout of that. So then Max and I were on our way to, was it Hiawatha or was it Munising? I think we were going to Munising.
I think it was Munising.
We played at Gallery Coffee Company a couple times in Munising, and that is a 3.5 hour, almost 4 hour drive.
Yeah, it's a nice chunk.
Max and I rode together, and that was how we took up a good chunk of that, was
Spitballing.
spitballing ideas.
Outlining it.
We got some of the general stuff. I mean, we definitely had a lot of moments where it was this is too much. Let's cut it back. But then we realized we couldn't cut it back without taking away something that we were trying to paint.
Yeah.
And at the end, we were just let's just make it as descriptive of a painting as we can. So there's a lot of work.
We did shave some time off of it, though, didn't we?
There was some parts that we changed or maybe axed or moved around. But for the most part, I mean, the story that we had...
The story held true, I believe. Yes.
We had intact. And the story, again, I'm sure people have heard the lyrics, but I just want to say, Otis Malcolm and his wife came to the area, and they settled on the creek, on the river just north of town. A local tribe told me, you need to stay away from there. There's big fish in there. You need to stay away from this area. And Otis said, nah, I'll be all right. I'm trying to build a home for me and my wife. We're homesteading. I got to do that. And so he set to work building one night on just a cool, calm summer night like you have any time in, Wisconsin. Ophelia, his new wife, decided to go for a little evening swim, a little sunset dip, which we've all taken.
Wasn't the best idea for her, I don't think.
Well, she went down there by herself, and lo and behold, she was attacked by a very large muskie, and essentially
mangled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otis was just racked with guilt over it, that he had been told about it, that he had been warned. He was just destroyed. So he had a mental breakdown.
What could I have done differently? Shouldn't have moved here.
Lost his mind, lost his ever-loving mind, and ended up resting on, I need to kill this fish.
Uh-huh. Next
and this fish
step.
is not just going to go down with a little pole and some bobbers. So,
And this is another example of that like positive, healthy masculinity that we were talking about earlier.
kill this fish.
Yes. Kill this fish. Got to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So he devised a plan. He headed north to the mines. So during that time, the mining was starting to take off up in the UP. So he got word of a mine somewhere.
What is the setting approximately of this? Like, what year are we thinking?
We say the year, right? And the year was 1862.
There it is.
There was hot summer storms.
Yeah.
So yeah, and some of the time frame, maybe I played with a little bit because when mining took off might have been a little different.
Certain.
It's a story. It's a story, and
Yeah.
a story. If you're trying to make it a work of nonfiction, you're not going to succeed. So, that being said, lots of nonfiction went into it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ophelia's dead. Otis decides to head up to the mines and grab some dynamite from someplace he knows, and he comes back down. And the whole town's like, "Otis, what are you doing? You can't go out there. You're mad, Otis." And you wouldn't have it because he was just mad. And a storm is rolling in at this time, a really bad, gnarly storm. And Otis is just again racked with madness, and he launches his boat into the river essentially. Again, the Wisconsin River is very wide in a lot of places. It's more like a lake, so big body of water here. He gets out there with his dynamite, and he's just looking for the fish, and lo and behold, he spots it on the horizon. It sees the boat and the commotion on the water and decides it's going to come in and basically seal the deal, finish off the Malcolms. And
Little did he know.
little did the Muskie know that Otis was prepared. And so Otis whispered a prayer, said goodbye to Ophelia, and
Went to join her.
and decided to go off and join her and take the Muskie with them. And that is the crescendo, the big moment in the song is
Boom.
boom, Otis and the Muskie becoming no more. However, they say to this day, though, whoops, sorry for the bump in the mic there.
Getting excited.
They say to this day, though, that if you go on the Wisconsin River on a cool summer morning, when the mist is still on there, that you can still hear Otis Malcolm's prayers. You can still hear them drifting on the breeze, seeping into your ears. And maybe that fish in its spirit lives on. Or maybe it made little baby fish and their ancestors live on. And there's monsters all throughout these lakes that we just don't know or hear about. But they're waiting to get ya!
That's why you always wear a swimsuit.
That's right.
Have fun, be safe out there. But I thought this would be a fun story. Who doesn't like being a little bit spooked out? I, as a kid, was obsessed with Loch Ness. Like, to this
love
day, I
Loch
want to go
Ness.
to Loch
Oh, yeah.
Ness.
Me too.
You
Ride
know.
Nessie. Yeehaw!
There's some history here. Anyways, that's that. The next song is a song by Max here. Max actually wrote this. This is Where'd Your Love Go?
Before we get started,
Yo.
do we want to make this a two-parter? We're only halfway through the album.
No, we'll keep talking.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna let you talk about Where'd Your Love Go. Actually, I'm gonna go take a quick break here. Again, Max Wyrock, everybody, talking about his hit song from Old Pine Road Band's album Branching Out. Where'd Your Love Go? Go ahead, Max.
Thanks for the generous introduction. Yeah, that song was about a woman that I used to love who used to love me, and a point came in our relationship where it didn't feel like I was receiving that love that I knew she had. And so I was, wondering what happened to it,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, we started playing that one live, and we decided we should put it on the album, and did so.
I remember when you started bringing it, you had said like, "Oh, I don't really play it like." So you had been playing it for some of your solo gigs, right?
Yeah, I
And-
usually
and
throw
you're
it in there.
And you're like, "Oh, I don't really play it the way we play it. I don't know if I like this like."
I
this
definitely got
tempo
used to it.
and- Yeah.
I think we sped it up a little, which I think the song needed. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was a good thing to do.
I think it's nice to like when you have that creative thing that you then bring to a band. It's like David was saying, like you it's a scary thing to do.
Yeah, at first it's kind of like, oh, look what's happening, but then you kind of sit with it for a bit and start appreciating the changes and the streamline about it.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot of different places that their love may have gone in this song. So what was the inspiration for some of those? Were you just kind of like off the cuff, like, oh, well, this would be fun, like, or
just stuff that sounded pretty on the page and in the air, and
I'd really like that. It's just born from this idea, like, where'd your love go? And immediately, there's almost this personification, like this love got up and walked away, instead of, that's
it's kind of what it felt like at the time.
Yeah.
Everything happens, and you have to find a reason for it, and I long have. It's all good now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really like some of the harmonizing we did on that too. Kind of call and response.
I
hope you will.
I hope you will. Yeah, and kind of ad-libbing with that too is super fun, and like we had a lot of fun takes with that too. Like when we did the I Know You Wills, and we got a whole bunch of those all on the bridge, and we recorded a lot of them, and we edited down to like 20% of them made it in, and but like. That was another fun part of like the editing process too. Is
all the vocal layering.
Oh
and
yeah,
playing and
you could it's real cheap to record more vocals,
Yeah.
And so you just went in there and we kept doing it until we found like the little pieces that worked the best and just like crafted them to like build the right way and
mixed it all together.
Yeah, that was really fun.
It's a lot of people have told me it's their favorite song on the album.
Really?
It's an earworm. It is such an earworm, and it's funny. We'll do it live, and I know all the words because I've listened to it so many times, and I'm singing along with Max.
Yep.
I was just practicing it in the car today, since I tend to mess it up live.
Genuinely, so much has come from during the mixing and editing process.
Oh yeah.
Having listened to it so many times, I've definitely listened to that songs more times.
Yes.
Than just probably you have at this point. And so even though you wrote it and created it, I've just heard it more. Yeah, which is a weird.
So I'm using like it's disappeared, swimming, and then flying.
Finding your mnemonic to hold and anchor things down.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's the whole trick for anybody that doesn't know. Use like if you can just remember the first or second line to a song, usually that'll unlock kind of the rest of it for your memory. So we find a little way to try to remember just those first lines, and then we forget them. Yeah. And we go play live, and we're like, oh shoot, and we'll play the second. Yeah.
Well, there was one track that you kept looking over me like, what the hell is the first line? That was like the gig that we played.
And it's a song. It can be a song you've done a million times. But something will happen, and suddenly your train of thought goes off, and
and it's not like you can,
derailed.
It's not like you can pick it up on the second line because
it's off. It's off.
The mnemonic is attached to that first line. Then you just go.
You're just out of there.
Yeah.
Any more commentary on Where'd Your Love Go? Anything else you want to share about that song? I didn't get to hear you talk about it, but I'll get to listen back. I had to go make some coffee and check on the dog.
Yeah.
The next song on the track is going to be Paul's song, and that is Long Life Without Me.
Yeah.
I always have to check because the working title versus what we sometimes call the song on all these is different. But Long Life Without Me, and Paul had told us the meaning of the song, but why don't you share that with our audience here?
Yeah, so I wrote this a couple months after my dad died, and that was about over 10 years ago now. I had this thought, like, okay, he was always just a real chill dude, and he was later in his life, he had dementia and all those things, and so I had to kind of imagine if he had all of his faculties, what would these conversations be like, and how could he comfort my mom, and so I put myself in those shoes, and but I also kind of said, I could also see him having had this conversation more in his youth. And, they didn't meet until they were in their 40s and whatnot, but they even having that conversation then, and then it kind of has translated to like it's absolutely a conversation that I've had with my wife now, and like I think it's important to say, like, you can't, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't want someone to be hung up on your ghost,
What a powerful premise that whole song is, too. Like, you talking about your dad and how anybody who's dealt with dementia and how it affects the people you love. It's like they're there, but they're not there. And that's definitely the most difficult part of it. And it sucks, from I think our perspective. Maybe when we were younger, we weren't ready for some of these conversations, or maybe when there was a time where we just didn't think we had the time for it, and then by the time it comes, it can be too late, and that person can still be around, which makes it that much more difficult. But what a powerful notion that even though your dad no longer had the faculties or the capability to express that sentiment, his son, an extension of him, was able to help express it.
That was really special.
And what a powerful testament that, nothing we have is permanent. Nothing we do is guaranteed. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Your health isn't guaranteed. All of it is it's a day by day, really. So much we get focused on everything else, and we lose track of that day by day. And sometimes that day goes by before we get the time to say and do the things we mean. But the powerful relationships and things that we have, it allowed your dad to be able to, share a sentiment that you knew he had, and that, that's powerful. It transcends death. And I think that's a really cool part of that song, that it's a message, and it's legacy, and what a cool song. Recording it was fun. We got some harmonizing, I think, that we do in that song as well. I always back out on the harmonizing on that because I'm so bad at just duplicating your part on it, so I'm working on it. But it's a great song. Did you want to say anything else about that track?
There was a story that I had actually I was listening to our last episode, and I was like, oh boy, I better get my shit together, and I'm gonna have to tell stories about my and something like popped into my head. I was like, oh yeah. So I remember when I was writing that song, it was just a little like uplifting moment. I was living in a townhouse that was basically like just one of two, so it was almost like a double in Austin, and it was like I was just insomnia hit real hard, and I was like, I gotta pour this song out, and but it was like 11 o'clock at night. and I didn't want to wake my roommate up, so I was just like, I'm just gonna go outside on the step, and I'm just gonna like sit on the curb with my guitar and like try to like write this song and try to figure this out. And so I'm out there and trying to like not sing right into my roommate's window, and then I hear from above there's someone who peeks her head out, and she says, "Could you do that somewhere else?" So
People can be cruel.
I know, right? And I literally was just like wandering down an alley in Austin playing this freaking song when I wrote it.
Yeah. She
Like,
probably got off work or something.
sure.
I was like, God dang, another one of these hippie kids.
right? But she was so nice about it. And I was
and
like,
that almost makes
"All
it
right."
worse. Like, scram, kid!
Yeah.
At least, what a
You can at least be like,
what a
"Ah."
jerk. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's funny. It's a great song. We appreciate the song and enjoy the heck
We're
out of
glad
it.
you did it here.
For time's sake, we don't have much longer left before we got to get going and go set up and do our stuff. So I'm going to compress the end of it a little bit here. I'm still going to talk about it, and I can compress it for a reason I'll get to in a minute. Anyways, the next song on the album is Find Your Way. The name of that song started off as If These Woods Could Talk because it's what it was wrote for. My friend Matt Persick had started a podcast, and he wanted a intro song to it. And his podcast is called If These Woods Could Talk, and he told me the premise that it was about capturing the Northwoods histories and some of those like B stories.
Right.
You get the big frontline page stories and articles and stuff, but some of those ones that slip through the cracks, his emphasis has definitely been more on trying to capture that.
How's this podcast going?
It's doing great. He's still
Good.
cranking out episodes.
Beautiful. Shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out If These Woods Could Talk. I think you can still find it on the library's website.
Cool.
But it's on Spotify and everything else. Anyways, that's where If These Woods Could Talk, and it's just a fun getaway song. The second verse, take a walk. A lot of the album or music that we make, I like when we record, we'll get the mix down, and the first thing that I'll do is I'll put it on my phone, the rough mix, and I'll go for a walk. We have a trail over here that goes around Hanson Lake, the lake that Muskie's written about, and I will walk with my dog around that and listen to the songs. And so that's kind of what I like. I like music that fits that, when I'm out in the woods. And I think Find Your Way encapsulates that pretty perfectly because that's what it's about.
It's a good woods walker.
Should also mention, too, Doug Klein also did backing vocals on Branching Out. He did it on a couple of different songs. Shades, he's in there. He's a layer. But our good friend Doug also threw down vocals on this. So, Nick, Doug, thank you guys for your work.
Thanks, guys.
The next three songs here are... the reason I said we can talk about them all together is because... when we started compiling things, I wanted to put these three songs together because I wanted them to kind of flow together.
They're kind of a package deal.
Yeah, they're meant to be almost more of one song, kind of split into three parts. They all have like their distinctive vibe and differences, but my whole hope was they kind of blended together. When you're listening
Very
on
different,
Spotify,
but they are cohesive.
yes. Well, they're all in the same drop D, and so they did kind of go together. Traveler is the first of those songs, and again, I really like you to take whatever meaning out of the song you want to take out of the song. Every song has a different meaning, a different place, purpose, inspiration. My inspiration for writing Traveler came from actually a video game.
I was looking forward to this story.
I'm so ready.
Yeah, I hope nobody judges. So people, I guess, are going to find out that I do like to game as a hobby. There's a lot of logic behind it. The way my job has worked for the last, going on a decade, I work every single weekend and have a lot of weekdays off. So, to get any social time to sit, talk, hang out with my friends, it comes on, weekdays and weeknights. And, that's just not always feasible, especially during the winter. So, I discovered gaming pretty early on as a single dad who didn't have a lot of money or time or anything like that. So I have a lot of fun with it. I got a sweet setup, and I do a couple of different games. If somebody wants to play, with me, go ahead and, message me, shoot me a message, and I'll get you get you my username and we'll do some gaming.
Shoot Davey a message.
But Travelers wrote about a game called No Man's Sky, and No Man's Sky, that is your role. You are the traveler. Every time you interact with an NPC or a character, they refer to you as Traveler.
Okay.
And it's a fun game. You explore this infinite universe, and you can there's all kinds of different ways to generate money, and you can use your money to upgrade your stuff. Pretty simple premise for a game, and I put a lot of time and hours into it for a couple of winters. Mostly game during the winters, I should mention, not so much during the summers. But anyways, it got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm getting more money. There's always another tier I can upgrade. There's always another tier, but what is it really doing? It started to feel like this very repetitive, almost tedious process that I still come back to every now and then. I like to play No Man's Sky still. They upgrade things, and the exploration is fun. But that's kind of what Traveler's about. It's just like sometimes feeling like you're spinning your wheels, and you need to go expand your horizons. You need to go see a little bit more, get some stimulation in you, because the mundane can get real monotonous.
Yeah. Truth.
I have to say, once I heard that story, every time we do that rising chord change, I think about going into a hyperspace jump every time.
Sure.
Cool.
Heck yeah.
It's
great. Yeah, I mean, it's a space. It's about space. It's about
space.
traveling and
So good.
getting out there.
Yeah.
It goes into the next song, Den of Heathens, which is the only song on this album that we actually all did together, and there's no lyrics. The night before we officially started recording, we kind of had a jam session in this room, and that was what came out of that jam session, was Den of Heathens. And it was meant to be just that, just kind of a fun, almost Celtic vibe jam. We put a lot of background noise and sound into it. During all of the low guitar parts, you'll hear glasses clinking and people laughing. You might hear some bubbles and different things. And the idea was kind of like you're sitting in a tavern back in medieval days, and there's a little band of evil gnomes in the corner, plunking strings and making wicked sounds, and that's what that song's about. It's the den of heathens.
I like also that you have Vindication as the religious, and then you the second to last albums are songs are religious to heathen.
Dude,
it's kind of that link.
I wouldn't say Vindication is religious.
It's about religion.
It's about religion, sure.
Yeah,
but
kind of.
There's a lot of themes in this.
Yeah.
And where I've been in the last couple of years and trying to rectify the tumultuous time that was my teens and 20s, and now that I've got a little bit of it's like, what I feel like? I feel like my 20s and teens, I was riding a horse, like a Mustang, and that thing's just been bucking and bucking. And for those first couple of years, I was just getting chucked around, but now I'm starting to it's starting to break in. You know what I mean?
Becoming a little smoother of a ride.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it ain't gonna throw me off and kill me tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the ride is a lot smoother for sure, and
You got that staying some shocks.
Yeah, I got some grip in my thing. Madman's Philosophy, the next song on there, that's actually probably the song that I wrote first when it comes to all these. I had wrote it. We had started doing that jam, that chord progression as a jam years ago, just kind of funking on it. It's just like a D minor 7 to a G7, just kind of a basic funk jam. And we needed some lyrics to it, so that's where Madman's Philosophy came from. And it's just a very, very strong funk vibe. I tried to put some soul into it and some gut into it. But a very funky, fun song, and it starts to evolve. At the end, you can kind of hear I use the guitar with the octave pedal, which gives it almost like a synthier sound. And that's kind of where I think our next album is going to start to go. You're going to see some of those funk elements maybe strengthened a little bit and incorporated a little bit more. As well as some more experimentation. Again, laying roots, branching out. The next one I really want to be the accumulation of everything we've done up to this point and growing it. But Madman's Philosophy, I think, is a good example of kind of the direction we're going. There's a lot more jam band feel to it And I think that's where you'll see a lot more of that. And those 3 tracks are supposed to go together. Traveler, Den of Heathens, Madman's Philosophy should one after the other. No breaks in between. The bonus track, Mice and Mycelium, technically on Spotify, everything like that, it's track 11. The initial plan with that track was to have it be for CD only, or if you purchase the full album on iTunes. And then when we went to go release it, I realized that to do that, I would have to release like a deluxe edition of it on iTunes, which would be a totally separate release. And I thought, you know what, heck with it. You guys can have Mice and Mycelium on streaming after all. However, it is, in my opinion, Madman's Philosophy is kind of the end of the album. And Mice and Mycelium is kind of a fun addition.
Just a nice little.
Yeah. It's not. It's more just a fun little subtle.
It's a nice
treat
little
in there.
ditty, though.
Thank you. That's it's a fun song. It's another one that's kind of about, there's some lyrics about the end of the world, maybe. There's a line in there about how Earth is constantly getting further and further away from the sun, and how it feels like we're just dancing on the edge of the abyss. And but that's how I feel sometimes, just dancing on the edge of the abyss. The abyss. Yeah, that horse might buck you anytime. Enjoy the ride. And that, my friends, is Branching Out, the entire album. We did everything. We did all the mixing. We did all the mastering, the levels. We recorded it. We wrote it. The artwork on the cover, I did that. We had an idea where we were going to do a photo session, and we were trying to coordinate when the heck we were going to do it, and then the season changed, and it was like, you know what? We're going to do it right now. And I just went ahead and I did that painting. It's just a tree kind of branching out against a pretty little sunset backdrop there.
Yeah.
And
did you say there was something significant about how many branches there were?
Sure. Oh, good question. Every branch represents basically a different member of OPRB.
Oh.
You got Paul and Max, the big branches. You got Scott and Chris in there. Thor's in there. Zach, and the number of branches, like off the main tree, not off the little trees.
You're
or
the
whatever.
main tree, right?
I'm the main tree.
Who would have thunk it? Who would have trunk it?
But yes, so the branches and the number of branches, all of them represent somebody who's been a contributing part.
Which one's mine, huh?
You've got that big one right there, buddy.
Can I see it?
I mean, yeah. You what do you mean? Can you see it? You have the album.
I want to see it now.
You got to buy this one. That is Branching Out, everybody. I hope y'all enjoy it. Give it a listen again. That was kind of my thought too. Is maybe the stuff, but now that you got a little context, you can find a little bit more in it when you listen again, and enjoy that. I want to thank my good friend Mr. Max Wyrock, Mr. Paul LaForest for joining me today. This was a last-minute thing. We got a show in town, but we weren't planning on doing a podcast today. Again, the podcasts and when they come out, it's going to be very sporadic. But ideally, during the winter is when we can kind of work on this and our side stuff. So. Yeah. You'll definitely see it during the winter months here as frequently as we can, and then it'll probably disappear again with the summer months. And if you want to see us, you got to go see us live because it's the only way.
And then we'll actually play music.
Yeah, probably. We'll get music involved here. We're through talking about our albums and what we've done up to this point. So at this point, we have to create new stuff if we need. You know what I mean? Like this is where we've kind of run out of stuff to talk about officially.
Right. There's always going to be more current events.
This is the end of the road. Well, we don't want to talk about. I mean, again, the long-term goal for this is to start getting some musical friends in here and have them talk about
integrate River Street.
Yeah,
sessions.
Sure. Integrates the River Street sessions with the Old Pine Road podcast and again, kind of a way of just keeping up and hanging out with us, seeing what we're up to. But I think we've given pretty much all the behind the scenes that we can for the most part.
No secrets anymore.
At this point, you guys know us better than we know us.
We're like the back of their hands.
The back of my hands.
That's scary.
Skeleton. I have OPRB. I'm the only one with the OPRB tattoo.
Quit bragging, dude.
And
Shout out to Tyler.
Max doesn't have one. Thank you, Tyler Bimiglia.
I'm gonna get one of these days.
He keeps talking about it, but he won't get the butt crack. Old Pine Road Band.
I'm not ready for my tramp stamp yet.
Old Pine Road butt cheek.
Old Pine Road cheek.
An Old Pine Road Band tramp stamp. You know what? 3,000 comments, and Max will get Old Pine Road Band tramp stamp tattooed above his ass crack. That's right. You could permanently alter him. I'll do it too.
You're not allowed to comment.
3,000 comments? Yeah, sure. I'll put it
will?
on my butt crack.
Okay.
Let's both.
Not on our butt
I'm
crack.
gonna do it either way, probably at this point. But
and it can't be more than one person commenting more than once.
I didn't say that. 3,000 comments, dude. Think about it. They gotta put in some work. If you guys are gonna lay out 3,000 comments on this, you get it. Yeah, you get it. If you're gonna put in that work, like even if they cheat, they get it.
You're right. I'm not saying how
It
big
doesn't
it's
have to
gonna
be a big tattoo.
Doesn't have to be
Doesn't
big.
have to be big.
I could write a script
Okay.
for this. You just write a script.
We don't need a script. It writes itself.
It writes itself.
Sorry about that kind of
Anyways,
Oh.
shh. He's trying to say we're not trying to give people ideas on how to modify.
I'm good with the old English.
Oh my gosh! Thank you everybody who took the time to listen today. We really appreciate you. I'm gonna see you out there on the road in a little bit here.
Old Pine Road.
On the Old Pine Road, because that's the Old Pine way. Thanks for listening, everybody.